Denkoroku, case 51. Heihei Dogen came to Tendo Nyojo. One day, Nyojo preached to his assembly at early morning zazen, saying, "Zazen is a dropping away of body and mind." Dogen, on hearing this, suddenly had great realization. Poem by Keisan Zenji. The ground, clear and bright, has neither surface nor inside. How can there be body and mind to drop away? Please sit comfortably if you need it. This case of the Denkoroku, which is a book compiled by Keisan Zenji, one of Dogen's disciples, is, of course, as you can see, about the practice of Shikan Taza, which is the core practice in Soto Zen as it is transmitted by Dogen Zenji. Here is the story of Dogen's realization on hearing the words of his teacher Tendo Nyojo. Zazen is a dropping away of body and mind. And really, this is perhaps the most clear definition of Zazen that we can find. Zazen is a dropping away of body and mind. Together with that dropping away, we are able to drop away all that can be called the technology of Zazen. Here is very clear pointed that it is not a matter of methodology or a special or secret technique toward something, but the Zazen itself is that realization experience. We call it dropping away body and mind. The practice of Shikan Daza has its origin in China in a school that was called Tiantai and was flourishing in China around the year 550 after Christ. And the first patriarch of the Tiantai school, who was the one who was emphasizing this kind of practice, was called Hui Wen, and only one phrase of him remains for us in our days. The phrase is, "The three wisdoms are realized into the one mind." And this is another definition, if you want to call it, of Zazen, echoing back that one by Tendo Nyojo. The three wisdoms are realized into the one mind. And this morning at Dokusan, we were musing with some of you about the etymology of the word Shikan Taza. That word, coming from the Chinese tradition, has a different pronunciation but exactly the same ideographs. How we pronounce it in Chinese is Jikung Totsuo, and it's very interesting how it changes and amplifies its meaning when it goes to Japan and is pronounced in a different way. The first two ideographs, Chi Kung, are the same we use into the traditional Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, when we talk about samatha and vipassana. Some of you have been practicing into the vipassana groups or Theravada tradition, and you can find it there. Samatha and vipassana are expressed in Chinese by those two first ideographs, Qi and Kung. But also, what we call samatha is translated from there as calm and oneness. The root of the word samatha is the same as samadhi. So we have there calm, we have the meaning of openness, and we have the meaning of oneness in our first word. Chi Kung. This Kung is the translation of the Sanskrit vipassana and means seeing through or understanding into essential nature. Now, when it goes to Japan, and this Qigong is pronounced Shikan, in the everyday language it has a different meaning, and Shikan, written with the same ideographs, that means retaining the same meanings. When it is pronounced Shikan, it means just, or nothing but. Sa, the Shikantasa, is the same for Zazen and means sitting. But the one who is before Sa, that which is written Ta, is very interesting. Ta means hitting the center or touching the center in the same way when we practice archery and you shoot the arrow, you touch the center. This is the meaning of Ta here, and Shikan Ta Sa. So the word itself is a kind of orientation to its own practice. Shikan Dasa, Das is the practice of sitting in that calm, oneness, openness, seeing clearly through essential nature and being in touch with the center. This is what we call Shikan Dasa. And in that way, we cannot even talk of it about as if it were a practice or a process. But for me, it is really a living experience, moment by moment, with no relationship to any kind of accumulation or development in time or space. It happens moment by moment. It renews itself moment by moment. And there is no way we can make them continue. And in that process of renewing moment by moment our attention and openness to the living fact of this very moment, of course, our whole body, our whole mind is perfectly involved. We have here the poem of Keisan Senji saying, "The ground, clear and bright, has neither surface nor inside. How can there be body and mind to drop away?" Here, Keisan Senji is really completing the meanings of the case itself. And it is a perfect echo to the phrase of Dogen, Tendo Nyojo, Zazen is a dropping away of body and mind. Keisan takes one more step and says, "The ground, clear and bright, has neither surface nor inside. How can there be body and mind to drop away? That ground of Zazen, sitting in that clear, bright ground with no gap at all, not one, not two, no inside, no surface. That is the Zazen of total openness in which we ourselves disappear, and that very ground itself is sitting right here on our cushions, taking a step at Kinhin, doing Gasho at the beginning of Zazen. In that ground, clear and bright, that has no surface, no inside, no outside, no before, no after, of course there is no place for mere sitting. By that I mean a way of sitting in which we can become aware of what is going on, but the observer itself is not being dropped. That very body and mind is not being dropped completely. Doesn't matter how bright that observer can become. The experience of dropping away body and mind is not there. We have to touch the point that Keizan Senji is pointing out when he says, how can there be body and mind to drop away? When we talk about Shikantaza, there is always the question about the differences between Shikantaza practice and koan practice, specifically Mu and Shikantaza. And sometimes there is the impression that you have two ways open in front of you, and you can take either Mu or Shikantaza. I don't see them really as different practice, but at different qualities or focus of the same essential practice of dropping away body and mind. In that way, when our practice of Mu or any koan we are involved at this moment becomes really deep, really subtle, the koan itself begins to disappear, and naturally we fall into Shikantaza. And also, if Shikantaza is not really being practiced in the inquiring spirit that we talk about when we talk about koan practice, if that inquiring spirit is not present in Shikantaza, we are just practicing mere sitting, watching, witnessing, but there is no dropping away of body and mind. So I think the two of them disappear at some moment in subtle practice, and the living fact of the essential nature is clearly seen. We can call that Zazen, truly. About the process of the practice of Shikantaza itself, after we say it is a single act renewing itself of essential nature itself, for the sake of practice we can talk about 3 steps, making clear that this is totally arbitrary and there are no such steps. But we can explain the process in that way. The 3 steps are: we sit the body, we sit the breath, and we sit the mind. So the first one is about the body. Sit the body. Dogen Senji says regarding that, human body means the 4 great elements and the 5 skandhas. However, none of those elements or skandhas is fully understood by ordinary people. Only sages know it. the entire world of the 10 directions is the true human body. That's very interesting. The entire world of the 10 directions is the true human body, is saying here, Dogen Zenji. So when we say sit the body, we are not just saying keep your posture without moving or take the correct posture. Dogen Zenji here is saying something more. And for me, it is that we have to really recognize that true human body that Dogen Zenji is talking about here. The entire world of the 10 directions is our true body. And that is the body that practices true Zazen. That is the body in which we can find joy and ease in our practice, as well as deepness and understanding. So we sit that body. Of course, we sit this body quiet, in right posture, in such a way that there is almost no effort and good balance of practice. But we should be clear that our skin is not a limit between the body and the rest of the world, but it is a connection. It is part of that true human body that is the entire world in the 10 directions. This is sitting the body. Then we have breath. Sit the breath. When we talk about breathing in Zazen, we talk about natural way of breathing. So we don't interfere in our breathing and allow it as it is to manifest itself. Also, we need to see clearly that breathing is more than merely the air coming in and out. Even physically speaking, that air goes to every part of our body. Every cell of our body is pervaded by this air. So really there is not much difference between what we are saying about sitting the body and sitting the breath. Let our natural breathing pervade our whole body. And not only breathing as air coming in and out through our nose, but the breathing of the trees, the breathing of the mountains, the breathing of the sea and the birds and every being. Then we have the mind, sit the mind. And of course, that means basically we sit mindfully in attention with our consciousness being clear about that we are alive, sitting here in this very body, in this complete and precious moment. But also Dogen has something to say there. He said, mountains, rivers, earth, the sun, moon and stars, walls, tiles and stones, these are the mind. So again here, let us sit with that mind. Let us sit as that mind in our very body. So in this practice that we incidentally call here Shikantasa, but can be also be called koan practice, subtle koan practice. Body, breath, mind disappear, and there is only that fundamental ground, clear and bright, as our very body, as our breath, as our mind. How can be there body and mind to drop away, say Keisan Zenji? There is another comment about that in one of Dogen's essay called The Point of Zazen. He says there, clear water all the way through the bottom. A fish swims like a fish. vast and fathomless blue sky without end. A bird flies like a bird. A fish swims like a fish. A bird flies like a bird. That's obvious, isn't it? Thank you.